Hey, thank you for joining me at A Simple Little Pearl. Thank you so much for watching. I wanted to come to you very comfortable and cozy today. It's a gloomy day outside, and so I'm coming with my PJs and my coffee and my Bible, and I just wanted to discuss a pretty difficult topic. There have been many people that have come to me asking for advice and just some insight on walking through a very difficult time. And I have been through that time. And so I just want to offer encouragement, again, insight, just my story, my way of how things went and how I've gotten through those really difficult times. So that's what this video is about today. Not really to give you a map because I know everybody's situation and story is different, but just again to give you my side, and maybe that will bring encouragement. And it could just bring some direction, just obviously to mainly get close to the Lord and just try to hear his voice and find his voice and what he's saying to you specifically. So in saying that, it is this video, as the title, it is walking through divorce and walking through forgiveness from that divorce. Again, I know that, people have asked me what to do and how to maneuver through theirs. And when the Lord says that he hates divorce, I absolutely understand what he means. I hate it. I wish that it didn't have to happen. There's so many different things and, scenarios and just stuff that happens through a divorce. And so to offer any sort of advice or direction for anybody, it's just my advice, because I've had people, should I stay, should I leave, which it's all different. Everybody's story, everybody's situation, everybody's upbringing, everybody's making, everything is different for each person. And so my number one advice, if anybody is walking through a divorce, is just to get as close to the Lord as possible, starting with his word and through prayer and fasting. That is just my go-to advice, because without him, there's no way I could have walked through my divorce the way that I did, or forgiveness. So first things first, if you are walking through divorce, find God's voice. Find what he's telling you to do. If you've never heard his voice, again, I haven't heard it audibly, but it's just, I've heard it through his word. And, there's a video that I did when it was my history with the Bible. Watch that video to show how the Lord opened up his voice to me. But there is an absolute necessity to hear God's voice as you're walking through divorce, as you're walking through life, period. But if you're walking through a divorce, you have to find his word, his instruction, what he's telling you to do, because again, everybody's story is different. My divorce started, the process started in 2018, but the downfall of my marriage started the real downfall of it started in 2017. That was the beginning of the end. And we had tried to work it out and do the things that we needed to do, but it just was obvious at the very end that just wasn't what was going to happen. Through just a lot of prayer and fasting, there was a lot that I was going through, obviously. And the whole time that I was going through it, I just kept hearing, from the beginning to the end of it, it was let go, let go, let go. Just those two words is what I kept hearing. And, I, again, not fully obviously understanding the Lord's, direction in that, my humanity was like, all right, let go. This is what let go means. This is what it's, blah, blah, blah. And so I tried to work out all the different scenarios where maybe he's saying let go of the hurt, maybe he's saying let go of maybe I need to let go of, and it just like little bitty things in my life through that time that I was trying to figure out what that meant. And I ended up in March of 2018 separating completely from him. And I went to my parents' home and lived with them, moved in with them. And again, still just the separating, not necessarily going to divorce. I was just thinking, well, maybe we just need time apart. And, tried to work through that season and doing that. And then one night, obviously wasn't going well. And one night I was washing dishes at my parents' house and I just heard, it's time to let go. And when that came to me just in the way that he spoke it, it was, I knew what he meant. And it meant for me that it was time to pursue to follow through with my divorce, to start the process and just let go. And as many times when I hear things like, hear big words or big instruction from the Lord, I just am like, I need some confirmation. So I walked into my parents and they were sitting in the living room and I was like, I think it's time to start the divorce process. And they were like, okay, and so I walked outside. I was like, I just need to go outside for a little bit. And so I went outside and just sat in their backyard, and no joke, maybe I'll say 20 minutes, but probably not even that long, my phone rang. Now, mind you, this was in May, maybe the beginning of June, but we had a house on the market and we had decided to sell before I even separated. So we put it on the market in January and we hadn't had hardly any movement on that house. Maybe one showing, I don't know. There was just nothing. And when I sat down in their backyard, I got a phone call from our realtor and she said, Kim, we got an offer on the house. I didn't even know that there had been a showing. And so maybe I did. I don't remember that part of it, but I don't even remember. All I remember is her calling me saying, we just got an offer on your house. And I was like, what? So, because that was a big thing over our heads. Like, well, now that was a thought. Well, now we have this house and it's not selling. There's just a lot to closing up a marriage. And when I got that phone call, I was like, oh my gosh, okay. This was the end. And even in that instruction of let go and begin the process of my divorce, I knew it was going to be about a 3-month process. I don't know. There was just something in my spirit that was like, it's going to be quick. It's going to be fast, about 3 months, which we have kids. We have 2 kids together. And so, if anybody's walked through divorce, that it can get kind of fuzzy when you have children. But I just knew in my heart, I knew that this wasn't going to be a big to-do. It was going to be about 3 months. And literally almost to the day, our divorce was finalized in August. And, so starting from July or the beginning of June to August was about 3 months. And so, I had been a stay-at-home mom through our marriage, and I had a little 5-year-old boy, and then we had a baby, and he was about a year old at this time, and so here I am, a single mom now, officially a single mom, needing to support my home. And so I really wasn't sure about what that process looked like. The whole time that I was living with my parents, I just kept hearing from the Lord, just be still. Just be still. I didn't feel peace about going and getting a job at this time, truly because I didn't know where, my parents lived 4 hours from where we had lived previously together. And so I was living with them now. I didn't know if that's where I was going to stay. My sister and her husband lived several hours from my parents, so I could go there and be with them. So I was just kind of, up in the arms. So anyway, it was just that be still, be still. I couldn't get a job. My best friends up in the area that I was living in had just opened and started a church. I love being involved in a local church, couldn't get the peace about even doing that. It was almost like the Lord was just putting me in this little cocoon and saying, stay here, heal, rest, raise your home, raise your family, be with your mom and dad and just kind of help them with their things. So, that's what I had been doing. And if anybody has ever received the instruction to be still, the struggle. Like, it is not easy to be still. Be still is probably one of the hardest things to do as a Christian, because it's not obviously that you lay on the couch and you just can't move, but it really is just to be at peace. Don't make any big decisions. Just trust the Lord. Wait for his further instruction. It was just kind of rest and be still, rest in him. And so I was just in that place from March until August, really trying hard, not because, obviously we're humans. We want to figure things out. We want to, what am I doing? What am I going to do? This is happening. And there was a moment when I was done waiting. I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done waiting. I need to figure out, my divorce is finalized. I've got to figure out what to do with life. And so my sister and her husband found a little house out by them. It was on 10 acres. It was just the cutest little country home. Yes, I was like, all right, that's where I'm going to go. So I started the buying process, and I was about to order the appraisal for the home, and I was reading a Charles Spurgeon. I don't know if you know Charles Spurgeon, but I was reading a Charles Spurgeon devotion. And at the end of that devotion, it was these beautiful words that I remember. And it was, true faith is being as immovable as a rock until I say go forward. I was sitting there on my parents' screened-in front porch, cozied up on their white wicker couch, and I read those words. I can still see it. I can just see it in my brain. And I read those words, and I knew I knew the Lord was tapping on my little brain, and he said, did I tell you to go forward? I knew he was talking about the house, and I said, no. But you didn't tell me not to, and I'm just trying to figure out life here. It was basically that moment where I was like, you're saying be still. This is like my processing. You're telling me to be still. My divorce has just been finalized. I have 2 little boys that I need to figure out how to support. And, it was the Lord being like, hang on. I told you to be still. And when I told him, well, no, but you didn't tell me not to, he came in with a very sweet instruction and said, you're going to get a job offer. When you get that job offer, that's how you're going to know where to go. So I called my sister and I said, I don't think I can get that house. And she was like, what? Why? And so I gave her the whole story. And it was interesting because I was like, because at the time they were trying to restore a home and it wasn't quite working out. And I was just like, maybe this is supposed to be you guys' house. And so it's funny, they ended up actually being the ones to purchase it. And so, but yes, I shut down the appraisal, shut down the buying, called the bank, called the realtor, called all the people, and stayed still. No joke, it was the end of November, I got a Facebook message from my pastor that me and my now ex-husband used to attend. We used to attend the church that he is the pastor at. He Facebook messaged me. I hadn't talked to him since I had separated in March of earlier that year. Facebook messages me and asks if I would consider moving down there and working for the church. I said, I need you to pray about that because here's what the Lord told me 3 months ago or a couple months ago. And here you are offering me a job. Mind you, I am a family girl. I love my family. This was there's no way that I would have been like, I need to move back down to where, me and my ex-husband used to live and attend church and I need to be away from, no. But I knew what the Lord told me would come. I knew what was being presented to me, and I knew that this was him. And so the pastor was like, no, we've talked about it, we've prayed about it, and that's why I felt led to reach out to you. The job is yours if you want it. So I immediately was like, yes, like, okay. Like I just knew, I knew this was the job that the Lord was telling me would come. So I packed up, this was at the end of November. I knew, again, just this little numb thought, I knew that it would be a new start at the beginning of the year. And so, we set a date for February 1st of 2019 would be my start date. So I packed up my boys and we moved back to the church in the town that I had moved from. So this was the start of my journey of, and again, there was all these uncertainties that I was like, well, I didn't really want it because I had, my oldest, Addison, was going into elementary school and kindergarten. So I still had my little Asher, who was at this point like a year and a half years old, or just a little almost. And so I didn't want to put him in daycare. I was very like, not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not something that I felt like I wanted to do because I just didn't know the area, that kind of area. And so funny enough, the pastor's wife, she was like, there's a woman who goes to our church and she's looking for a little side job and she would, love to watch Asher in her home if that's okay. And I knew her and I knew her family. And so I felt very comfortable with that. There was a house that she also knew about, and she said, I have the perfect little house. And so I ended up FaceTiming, and the people that owned the house went to our church. So I ended up FaceTiming and looking at the house over FaceTime. I was like, okay, that looks fine. And so, the end of January or middle of January, we pack everything up and we move to our now new home and we start our life. So it was just a beautiful way that the Lord lined everything up, all the questions, all the worries, all the fears. It's just like he took them out one at a time until we were settled. And I felt, and it's funny because it's like I'm literally like 5 minutes from everything, just in this little bitty, I'm still here. That's a whole nother story in itself. But I moved down telling my friends that own this house, don't worry, I'm only going to be there 6 months. I'm going to come down, I'll find a house and I'll buy it and I'll be out of your hair. And now it's about 7 years later. I'm still here. Now that I'm in this season, I absolutely see why I'm still here. But anyway, that's that's a whole nother story. But that is how the Lord moved me through my divorce. And mind you, me and my ex-husband, we're very, we're not confrontational. We don't like drama or anything like that. We're peacekeepers, peacemakers, whatever it is. We just like to keep the peace. So our divorce has thankfully been very amicable. We do the every other weekend. Yes, my internal battle when the divorce was finalized was over between me and him, but you do also have to walk through that now with your kids, that whole being moved from homes and separate parents and separate livings. It's just it really is tough. So I did have to walk through that with the boys in the beginning. Asher, my youngest, not so much, just because he was so little. But Addison, absolutely, he had a hard time. He had some rough nights that we had to work through. But ultimately, it was a pretty calm divorce. Now, in saying that, I know that that's not everybody's situation, and I honestly, again, my advice in that is just to get really close to the Lord. And he really does. It's a beautiful thing when, you think about that scripture and know that scripture about how he's your defender. And it really is true. It's almost, like I said, I just felt like when I was living up with my parents that he just cocooned me in. He just created such a safe space, even though, there was, I'm not going to say that there wasn't any like anger, like words or anything like that, because there were moments. I mean, we're heated moments, nothing, violent or anything like that, but you're walking through hurt. And so that's, going to cause some uncomfortable times. But still, the Lord calmed me, helped me. And so I just really encourage, if you are walking through a divorce, that you just really just get all up in. Psalm 91 is a beautiful scripture for me. I've memorized it. My kids have memorized it. And I just recommend that chapter. If that's if that's something you know or don't know, go read it. And I would read it daily, just because it brings such a comfort to you when you're walking through a really difficult situation. So that was kind of my short story of how my divorce went. And then, as a Christian, we all know that forgiveness is needed, that we also then have to walk through a process of forgiveness, a process, when you're married, you have the soul tie, and you have to, because, in the beginning, while yes, divorce happened, there's still feelings. There's still like, you still have, you hear stories, you hear things, obviously your imagination is running wild. You still have this connection, with somebody else that has to now be severed. And so that takes time. And so I was, there were many nights that I would sit here at this very table and just be like, Lord, what is happening? Like, how did I get here? I'm single. There was so much instruction that I had throughout my marriage, beginning with in the beginning of my marriage and throughout my marriage up until the divorce. Like, there was so much instruction that I received from the Lord, and it was so hard for me to know and to understand that He knows everything. And so if Him knowing everything, this is where I'm at, like there's so much that just didn't make sense to me, so much that I just had to walk through, and He was there for it all. I know that there are people out there that are like, you're not supposed to question the Lord. Well, let me tell you, I've questioned the Lord, because I know that He knows everything. I don't. And so I'm only a little person down here trying to figure out life and maneuver through it the best way that I can. And so it's just a very, I've questioned Him. I've got angry at Him. He's a huge Lord, and He can absolutely take it, and He has taken it and handled me in such a beautiful way. And so as I was living here, there was a time that He then moved me through the forgiveness process. Again, being a Christian, I knew I needed to forgive him. I just didn't know what that looked like, what that meant. And it was almost like I'm just trying to go through the divorce process right now and trying to figure out life after marriage. So it really wasn't anything that was on my radar at the time. But a couple years, living here, it was January, I believe, of 2021. And that's when a journey of forgiveness started. I was scrubbing my floors, and I was talking to, just via text, my pastor's wife, the church I worked for. And so she, we were just kind of talking back and forth, just friendly talk. And I am scrubbing my floors in this very area, and very clearly, it's like the Lord knocked on my brain and said, pursue him. And I knew, and sometimes the instructions, like, what? But this time I was like, I know exactly what you're saying. And so I started to freak out a little bit. My heart started to race, and I went to the room, and I was like, I'm going to need some clarification on this. Like, I need some confirmation. And very quickly, after he said, pursue him, he said, is anything impossible for me? Can I not do miracles? And I, obviously I know the answer to those questions, but I went to my bedroom. I just did the whole thing where you just open up your Bible and are like talk to me, what is this real? And nothing was there. It's like one of those random verses that you'll get that make no sense to you. But so I closed my Bible and I went back to the kitchen, just kind of like, what in the world? And I looked at my phone, and my pastor's wife had sent me a text as I went into the bedroom, and it was a video of Catherine Coleman. And so I open it. I don't know if you know her or not, but she's a pastor. She's passed now, but she was an old-timey pastor. And her video was on a book that she was promoting that she had just wrote called Nothing is Impossible. And it was the story of a woman. A woman was giving her story of a miracle that the Lord had done for her. So it was basically answering the two questions that he asked me. I knew the answers to them, but that was what I knew was my confirmation to what he had just told me to do. And so I got angry. I was like, this is not fair. Like, this is not fair. You're asking me to pursue him? Like, this, if anything, he needs to be pursuing me. And I just had this very honest, very open conversation. And I said, because when I first got married, there was a moment of hesitation right before I got married. And it just, I just wanted to be certain that I was in the Lord's will. There was just something off a little bit about this whole thing, which, hindsight, I know now. But it was almost to the point where I just was like, I can't do this. I can't get married. But there was a church service that I attended with a woman that is just a very beautiful prayer warrior. She's one of those people that can just come up to you and just read your life and you haven't even spoken to her. Like, the Lord just speaks beautifully through her. And I went up to her for prayer and I said, I just need some prayer, because I had just had this panic, about what I was about to do. And she just very sweetly prayed over me. And then at the end, she's like, the Lord wants you to know that you are in his will. And so, just from that, and then, if you've heard or if you watched the video of Addison and me very hesitant about having kids, how the Lord walked me through that, and then the whole ending of my marriage with the let go, it was just like, all of these little things that I told the Lord, I said, I feel like I'm your little toy right now, and you're just moving me all over the place and playing with me, basically, is what I felt like. And he very sweetly, very calmly said, you're not a toy, Kim. You're hope. And people need hope. And the only way that they'll get hope is through a story. And you are going to be their story of hope. And when he said that, it was just such a beautiful, there was just a calm to it, because again, so many times that I would be sitting here at this very table questioning how in the world I got here. I'm listening to what you're telling me, I'm praying, I'm reading, I'm living the best that I can for you, and I'm here as a single mom raising two boys. Like, how in the world did this happen? And it was just one of those moments where it was almost just him showing me. When I said yes to the Lord, when I gave my life to him and said, God, I will serve you, I said yes to the Lord. I said yes to all of it. I said yes to the good times and the bad times. And so now to just realize that my life is a story, and it's going to give somebody hope that, yes, that's worth it. You are worth it. Me, if you're going through what I've gone through, I'm here to give you hope. I'm here to give you encouragement, to know that God's with you. He is absolutely with you, and he will lead and guide you through this thing. Just stay close to him. Find his voice. Get in his word. Get into prayer. Even fast if you need to, just to surrender your flesh to him and just get it in line with what he's telling you to do, because there's going to be things he's going to tell you that aren't easy. And you have to be able to handle those and do those things. Again, you're human, gonna make mistakes, but you have to be able to walk through those things the best that you can with him, and he'll help you do that. So even in this instruction to pursue him, and then he was like, Tell him, speak it and speak it to him now. I was just like, what? Like, you're telling me to pursue him and now you're wanting me to tell him I'm pursuing him? Like, what in the world? And so I did. I mean, after he gave me that beautiful clarity of what this is all about and to bring hope to people, I got my phone and I sent him this long text and letting him know what I'm going to be doing. And mind you, again, he was very respectful, but he declined basically anything that I was going to be offering to him. And, understanding that, but knowing that the Lord can, my thing is pursue. So my thing was, that means you're pursuing somebody knowing that, in my thinking, there's going to be restoration then. So the Lord's telling me basically to pursue him because he's going to bring him home, and there's going to be a beautiful restoration story at the end of this to bring somebody hope. That was my conclusion of all of this. He didn't tell me that was the conclusion. That's just what I came up with on my own, being the definition of pursue. You pursue somebody in, with the finality of you're going to get whatever you're pursuing. Didn't know how that was going to happen. Didn't know what that was going to look like. And I've obviously never pursued anybody. So kudos to anybody that has. It's a tough job. It made me really sympathetic to, how when people ask people on dates and that you're taking the first step, like that's so incredibly hard and humbling to do. But yeah, so I entered into pursuing my ex-husband, again, not knowing what that even looked like. And so it started very stupid and cheesy, and I would do little text messages. And there was one particular night, and I was just really a month in this thing, and he texted and he's like, can I talk to the boys? And I replied, no, but you can talk to me, just being real stupid. And again, very sweetly, he just was like, he declined. And so I got mad and I was like, Lord, what in the world? Like, why am I having to do that? I just didn't understand why. I didn't understand why. I mean, yes, he had told me about the hope, but still I'm doing it. And again, as humans, we're like, I'm going to do it. And here's going to be the result. And here's when it's going to happen. And when that doesn't happen like you imagine, I was getting angry about it. And I went to bed that night crying and just frustrated. And I woke up the next morning and Addison, my oldest, it was Valentine's. It was getting to be the Valentine's time. And I had some things to do at work and I went to the post office, and right across the post office is a Dollar General. So I went into the Dollar General and I was looking for candy and things for his party, and I couldn't find anything. So I went over to the little cards, Valentine's card, like the box of cards. And I was flipping through them. And I was like, Spider-Man, no. And then I saw one that was Super Mario. So I picked it up and turned it over to look at what the cards look like. And you guys, I have a picture of it, but just for privacy's sake, I won't show it. But I turned it over and they're literally printed on the Valentine's card Super Mario box. That was printed in 2020, mind you, because I even looked at the date. I mean, this just shows you the process of the Lord. On the back was a card, and it said, from Kim, I mean, not me, but it was my name, from Kim to, and my husband's ex-name, or my ex-husband's name. From Kim to my ex-husband's name, a card. And I was like, what in the world? Like, we don't have common kids' names. Like, Kim is not a common kid name. And here I am being printed on, and his name on the back. And it's from me to him. I almost lost it in the Dollar General Valentine's aisle. I was like, what in the world? Like, it was just a very clear message that I am supposed to pursue my ex-husband. So the journey began. I mean, started a little bit, but yeah, it really began that day. And I was like, all right. So I bought him some little Valentines, gave it to him. I mean, y'all, it was just it was a process that I was just really walking through blindly, not really sure what to do. Again, just with the expectation of what I decided what the end was going to be. Never really had that conclusion from the Lord until 2 years later. So it was the end of 2022, and it was December, and I was just done. I was like, I've been at this for 2 years almost, Lord, and there has been no change. There's been no restoration. Neither one of us basically want this, and here I am still doing what you're telling me to do. And so I just was done. I was like, I'm just done with this. And, there had been gifts that I had bought. There had been, texts that memories that I had to drum up and be like, well, this is how we used to be. It literally was me inching my way through this whole instruction the best way that I knew how. And again, trying to find, and then, it's like he just said it and then just went silent. And I was like, what am I doing? And I was trying to open my heart. I was opening my heart to the possibility of this and, being restored. And every time it was just like close. Anything that I put out there was shut down. Again, he was never disrespectful or anything. He really was trying to be as sweet as he could about it. But still, it was just like a no. And so December came, and I just was done with the rejection. I was just done. So I went into the new year, and I went to church one Sunday in January, and the pastor of the church that I attended and worked at gave a message. And no joke, y'all, his message, just at the end of it, he just slipped this little nugget in, and he said, pursue could mean continually offering forgiveness. And when he said that, and he wasn't speaking to me, it was just part of his message. Pursue could mean, there were like different, obviously, definitions, but he said one of the definitions for pursue is continually offering forgiveness. And when he said that, it was just like that's interesting. I've never heard that before. And it made a lot of sense to me. It just really struck my heart. Like, that's what you're telling me to do. You were telling me to continually offer him forgiveness. And the way that I was doing it was just bringing up, things and offering things and, just trying to, again, it was opening my heart to him in a way that I could continually offer him forgiveness. And so I don't know, it just brought comfort to me, the comfort that I needed going into the new year, still pursuing him in the best way that I knew how. And then a couple months later, it was in March, our other teaching pastor did a little YouTube that just brought closure to me. But he spoke on how he used to live in a certain town, and he grew up in this certain town, and there was just a lot of bad memories connected with this certain town. And the Lord ended up several years, he, as an adult, the Lord brought him back to this town with his family, now with a mission. And he spoke on how the Lord has completely transitioned his idea and his feeling about this place, because what used to be a very sore spot for him has now become a beautiful place to him. And he just had to open his heart back to coming back, first of all, and then second of all, starting this beautiful mission that the Lord gave him. And to me, it was just a beautiful way to see this process, how there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of hurt, there was a lot of betrayal, and all the things that went into my relationship. And it was like the Lord had to bring me back to him and open my heart to continually offer forgiveness to him in order for then it to be closed completely. So it was almost like that whole 2-year process that I had to walk through pursuing him, again, continually opening my heart to him, even to the possibility of maybe restoration, to the Lord being like, okay, now we can close it. Now the soul tie has been severed and you can move on from this with a clean heart, with a clean mind, with not any hurt feelings anymore. Because truly, in that moment, that's what it felt like. It was like there was all of this, when you're connected to somebody in such a deep way and then you're removed from them, you still have to work out some of those things. And so it's like, I know I need to be separated from him, but I still feel so connected to him. And so it was like that whole 2-year process it was clear to me now that while I was thinking it was restoration for us to be together, for restoration with me and him, it was really restoration with me and him. It was a closure in one relationship and just a beautiful healing with me and the Lord, because there was a lot of question that I had between me and the Lord. There was a lot of like, how in the world, there was a lot of healing that had to be done all. And I really do feel like that was such a beautiful way that the Lord truly walked me through forgiveness. I didn't know that I was being walked through the process of forgiveness, but then at the end of it and just seeing what he did in my heart and how I could now see this person and there not be anything. Like, it's so nuts when you think about how you're in a relationship with somebody and you would literally give them or do anything for them, and then for them to just be a person to you, it just is a really weird process, and it's just weird to think about, but so beautiful because it really can happen, and it can happen in such a beautiful way. Like there wasn't any like bad things. It was just, between me and the Lord and my questioning him. But it was just, I don't know. It was just such a beautiful way for him to bring a really hard situation to a close in such a beautiful, peaceful way where I can see it now as like, man, Lord, like, thank you. Like, that was so hard to walk through and so humbling to walk through. But the fact that you allowed me and gave me the strength to do that, even with my thinking, it's like I assumed that it would end a certain way and it didn't. I was even telling people, this is what I'm doing. This is how it's going to end. So y'all get ready. And then when it didn't, it was just like, it just really was a lesson too for me to be like, when he tells me something, I need to be careful and cautious and just wait. And, unless he's given me that instruction, don't assume, because y'all, that scripture that says his ways are above our ways, absolutely is absolutely true. So I just wanted to, that's my story of how I walked through my divorce, and then I walked through the process of just having that soul tie severed and walking through forgiveness and really, truly being here today. 8 years later almost, completely free. And that's what living for the Lord is all about. It's just being able to be free in him. Like, there's so much love and so much joy and so much peace that he offers to us if we'll just take it. And yes, it's going to be humbling. Crucify your flesh, absolutely. Like, there's going to be times when your flesh is saying this and your spirit has to rise up and be like, nope, we're doing this. And it's just a big war that I was having within myself that has to happen sometimes. But that's where that fasting comes into play, to be like, nope, flesh, listen, this is how we're going to do things. I know you're hungry, but I've been feeding my spirit, and this is what my spirit's saying, and this is what we're going to do. And so there's just, when you trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, in all of your ways acknowledge him. What are we doing with this, Lord? All my ways, not just the ones that I want, like all my ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. absolutely 100% true is that scripture. And so I wanted to encourage you with that. If you're walking through divorce, if you're walking through forgiveness, yes, we know we need to forgive, but sometimes it's really hard when your heart feels differently, and that's why your heart talks about it, your heart's deceptive. Yeah, it's like, no, we need to hang on to this stuff. Absolutely not. Let it go and let the Lord help you let it go, because He will. He absolutely will. So find His voice. And sometimes we do, like, our first thing is to go tell people, and obviously it's to go tell people we love, and we know that those people love us, but be very careful with the instruction that they give, because they love you and they don't want to see you hurting or anything like that. But ultimately, take their advice, but then take it to the Lord. Always take it to the Lord. Pray about it. And if there's a peace that you feel, with whatever He's telling you, like, that's how it's just, yes, there was, when He said pursue Him, yes, there was anger, but there was also like that, I know, blah, I know what you're going to do. It's like those things where you know what you're supposed to do. You don't want to do it, but you absolutely know that's what you're supposed to do. Like, that's how those moments are. And it's like, I may not want to do this, but I know I need to do this. And does it always make sense? No, it probably is like the opposite. But you still have to just trust the Lord in those moments and do what He's telling you to do. So be encouraged today. If you're walking through a really tough time, get close to the Lord. Read Psalm 91. Memorize Psalm 91. Like, that's been my go-to scripture through all of these years. And it just really brings comfort and strength and guidance. And then He'll bring His word. And so just know that you're not alone in this process, that He is so, so, so close to you. So just try to find Him. If there's a lot of noise, clear out the noise and get close to your Father, because He is there. So be encouraged. It is possible. Forgiveness is possible. And there is a beautiful, beautiful light waiting for you at that end of that really long, dark tunnel. But just keep walking, keep going, and know that He is right there with you. Y'all have a good day.